It's probably time for an update on my 2022 year of the strategy RPG video. So at this point in time, several months and months and months in the future, I have played all of those games, and may as well talk about it, right? I think I played Triangle Strategy first. I will. The short answer is Triangle Strategy. 9 out of 10 gave me depression. Triangle Strategy was really fun. I thought the combat was really cool. I liked how the characters um, all kind of had unique individualities to them or fit certain archetypes or whatever. And that was the route you took. It did take away having to think about all the ways you could push someone. It kind of wanted you to push that way. And that's fine. Some people need and some people want. And, some games even want that sort of flexibility to turn one character into basically anything. Fire Emblem sometimes it does this, and sometimes that's just too much. I did like that part of Triangle Strategy. It was like, look, this ninja lady is supposed to be a ninja lady. If you'd like to buy these upgrades for her, cool, but she's still going to be a ninja lady in the end. That part I appreciated. I thought it was a beautiful looking game. Character models look great. The battle scenes look great. Looked really cool. No complaints there. I learned a lot about myself playing this game and the difference between being like a teenager playing this kind of game and being an adult playing this kind of game. So, being a teenager playing this kind of game that has a lot of political storylines based off of real world events. Like, for example, I played Ogre Battle as a kid, teenager, whatever. That game is inspired by the Yugoslav Wars. And it has a level called Pogrom Forest, right? So those are very serious themes that you only sort of understand as a teenager. It's like when I performed in Fiddler on the Roof in high school, and we watched the movie, and the choir teacher didn't explain to us that in the scene in the bar where the Jewish members of the community bump into Russian members of the community, like physically bump into, and they just look very afraid of them. It's because they're worried they're going to get murdered, right? You understand that as an adult. You don't understand that as a teenager. So a lot of the themes and a lot of the story in Triangle Strategy involve racism, genocide, very serious things where sometimes there's no good guys, sometimes there's no bad guys. There's just various groups, and depending on the storyline, because there's branching storylines, they're all terrible, right? They're all terrible. And you don't want to please any of them. There's one side that's very much. There's one side that seems to be inspired by real world religious influences that could make you uncomfortable, and there's characters that are mistreated by them that you could interpret as being inspired by Jewish people. And depending on which route you take means fucking over people you don't want to fuck over. So you're playing this game and you're feeling like all of the evils of the real life world, and everyone's like political influences and stuff like that, and you just kind of want to be like, I'm done with all of you. I'm going to go into the ocean, and you can fall apart on each other for all I care. So, engaging storyline, interesting branching routes, a lot of political intrigue, good gameplay. Very stressful to play as an adult. So take that as you will. Great game. I encourage people that are less empathetic and less stressed out by the horrors of the real world play this game, rather than people that get really touchy-feely or want to choose the right path and be the white shining knight, because no one is and everyone's terrible. There's a lot of replay value in this game too if you go on to try to push yourself on the different branching paths. I will not replay this game because it was kind of mentally a little bit stressful. So I'll say that. Tactics Ogre Reborn, I played next, and I didn't finish it. In fact, there were aspects of the gameplay that made me want to play a different game, so I did, and I just never went back to it. That game was Pokemon somehow. It made me want to play Pokemon Violet. There's a lot of like catching in this game where you can like recruit or catch different monsters or other characters. So you get to a certain point and there's different dragons and like lizard people or whatever, and you're like, I want a lizard person, I want a dragon, I want a griffin, I want a whatever. And you just get to this point where you're trying to catch all these characters. But you can only use like, I don't know, 10, something like that at a time. And you just get this big giant roster that you're trying to rotate through, and you're like, well, who do I really want? But on the topic of being able to push anyone anywhere, it seems like this is one of those games where there are too many options, where you can like turn people into different character classes and stuff like that. But unlike the games I played as a kid, like Knight of Lotus, for example, Tactics Ogre Knight of Lotus, there's less restrictions on which way you can go, which kind of dovetails into a different topic on stereotyping and racism and fantasy games that I don't really have an answer to here, but it was different. I feel like maybe I would like some restrictions. Now that doesn't mean a female character needs to be limited to all the frail girly classes. I don't necessarily need that to happen. But it did feel a little weird knowing that every one of your characters can be basically anything. So why differentiate anything at all? Like, that was one of the things I liked before in Ogre Battle and Ogre Tactics Ogre Knight of Lotus is that you'd have your frontline people and your backline people, and they had different things, and you kind of recruited people for different purposes. I know by the time Ogre Battle 64 came around, there was like less women in the back, men in the front, kind of stereotyping in there, but it did remind me of that. I don't know if the original Tactics Ogre was this flexible, or if this is just a remake of a remake that's made it more flexible with time. I think I looked it up and I've already forgotten, but I stopped playing it. It felt like none of the characters were unique at that point in time, and I just made me want to play Pokemon. It was harder than Triangle Strategy, I feel. I think Triangle Strategy had a good amount of difficulty, where this one sometimes random difficulty spikes and then back down. I think I went the wrong way near the beginning of Tactics Over and was like, whoa, what happened here? Like, characters kicking my ass, and then I beat them, and it was like kind of much easier afterwards. So I liked that there were Lizard Men and other interesting character classes, but there wasn't that much of a difference between a Lizard Man and a Man Man, so didn't finish it. Will I go back to it? I don't know. Final strategy game in that trilogy of things I was talking about, Fire Emblem Engage. 8 out of 10. Gave me decision paralysis. Too many characters. That's the short of it. This one, I think, I was looking for a Fire Emblem game that was less ridiculous, I guess. Fire Emblem, I guess, has gone two ways, where there's more of a traditional Fire Emblem game, which always has a ridiculous storyline and voice acting and characters and whatnot, but is less fan servicey, we'll call it, more combat oriented. Not combat oriented; they're all combat oriented, but more like combat centric. Like that is more of the important thing, the actual physical combat and playing through that, not the stuff in between. And I appreciated those types of Fire Emblems. I grew up on those types of Fire Emblems. This is not to say that Three Houses or Fates weren't good, or Awakening weren't good, important games for Fire Emblem, but you do want to back away sometimes from all the romance and recruitment and everything else. I feel like this game properly centers itself on the combat more, to the point where you kind of have to like relearn, like, oh no, these rings are, I will lose if I don't like actually play with these rings in the right fashion. So that's cool. I like that. I think the character design is a lot better than in Three Houses, for example. But there are so many characters, like so many, to the point that I got anxious playing it because I didn't know whether or not to use a character or switch to a different one because they were always being thrown at me. And you can't use them all, right? Like you got to train some of them specifically and you got to evolve some of them specifically. And you just constantly worry that like, well, am I focusing on the wrong person if they're going to give me this prince that is stronger and better in every way than this other character I'm currently using? You don't want to get attached to anyone. Honestly, it kind of reminds me a little bit of my issues with Pokemon Go in that like they're always throwing a better thing at you, so you never got attached to anything because they would always give you something or someone better. Like that's kind of where I'm at with Fire Emblem Engage right now. I kind of stopped playing because um, it was like too noisy at night with children running or trying to sleep nearby. But yeah, I think I'll go back to it at some point, and I'll just have to be like, whatever. I'm using these ones. I don't care, and just try not to care about like, oh, I wasted a strength up on this one character that I'm not even going to use anymore, and just like finish the game because it is fun, the combat areas, and I just need to like plow through it and enjoy it and finish it. So those were the results of the year of tactical strategy. Triangle strategy was really good, but made me sad. Tactics Ogre was maybe not as good as I wanted it to be. It made me want to play Pokemon instead. Fire Emblem Engage, yeah, I'd say pretty good. Maybe cool with the characters a little bit. Maybe not. Man, I should look it up. I wouldn't be shocked if they keep throwing characters at me. It's gonna be like 50. That's too much.